This happened around 9 years ago, when I was 11. All the following names mentioned aren't the actual ones for obvious reasons. There was a girl at school named Amy who didn't have many friends. She was very quiet, and honestly, I thought she was a bit strange, but I felt it would be nice to befriend her. I eventually talked to her, and it turned out she was simply just a very nice girl. We became best friends rather quickly. It got to the point where I spent every weekend at her house, and then we would walk to school together. Because I was at her house so frequently, I got to know everyone in her household. Her mom, her dad, and her half-sister from her mom's previous marriage. However, even at my age, I knew there was something weird about her dad, Rob. He always seemed very interested in me, and frequently tried to play fight with me, which I don't think is normal. Whenever he was around, I felt uneasy. He was a short, fat man with gray/white hair. Always had a weird smirk on his face and really wide eyes. The weird interactions with Rob started off with him stealing bits of my food when I wasn't looking, and then laughing and making sure to put his arms around my shoulders to apologize. He'd always be wherever we were, upstairs, downstairs, or in the garden. He was always lurking about. There was a day Amy's grandmother, from her mom's side, was visiting, and Rob kissed her on the mouth as a greeting. As if that wasn't weird enough, it turned into the creepiest, sloppiest French kiss. Everyone except Amy and I found it funny. She put on a smile when her family looked over, but I was horrified. Maybe I shouldn't have gone back, but I felt like I had to, for Amy. After that, there was a day we were playing in a room, and Rob came in and started an argument over nothing. It got heated, and he grabbed some rubbish bag, saying he was going to throw all our toys away. Of course, an 11-year-old is going to go mad if they think their dolls are being thrown away, so Amy was hysterical. We followed Rob downstairs, and he told Amy if she yelled at him like that again, she would regret it. It was then he started to remove his belt. Amy started pushing me towards their front door, which is just in front of the stairs, so we could run out. The thing was, she was sort of half laughing, as if she was trying to convince me it wasn't serious. But even at that age, I could tell it was. I went out through the door, but when I turned around and waited, Rob slammed it shut. After a few moments, all I heard was Amy screaming at the top of her lungs. I was so scared and didn't want to leave her, but all I could do was stand there. Eventually, I found the courage to go back in, and I went upstairs to find Amy brushing her doll's hair. She was smiling at me, but her face was obviously freshly stained with her tears. There were no visible bruises or marks on her face or arms, but he could have hit her anywhere, and I wouldn't know. I then felt as if I had to protect her, so I continued going there and didn't tell my mom a thing. A real dumb move on my end, looking back at it. On one of the nights I slept over, I woke up thirsty, and we were close enough that I was allowed to get myself a drink. I went downstairs, and there Rob was, lying on the floor, in the dark, with nothing but tighty-whities on, and he was just staring at me. It was the creepiest thing. The street lamp from outside shining through a gap in the blinds lit up the room enough for me to see. I didn't get myself a drink and ran back upstairs. I wouldn't go back down until I knew for sure he wouldn't be there. After seeing that, I stopped sleeping over at Amy's. If my mom ever found out about that, she'd probably go over and kill him. Years later, I was talking to Amy and she opened up to me because she sent me her mental health assessment sheet. There was some disturbing shit in that sheet. Among those was her at 10 years old, waking up to Rob raping her 15-year-old half-sister, who was screaming for Amy. It also mentioned that he beat Amy on a regular basis, the most recent occasion just a few years ago. He beat her in front of a friend, who luckily called the police. I told Amy about all the things I noticed about him, and all the weird shit he did, and how I knew something wasn't right. I wish I had told Amy these things back when we were younger, but I doubt it would have changed anything. She likely would have still kept living with him. All I know about Rob now is that he's in the hospital suffering from COPD, and I couldn't give two shits about him getting better. I'll start this by saying I am a 29-year-old female from a small town in northern Tennessee. The kind of town where everyone knows everyone, and the kind where you have to drive 30 minutes to an hour to a job that pays a living wage. So when my dad started his new job around 9 years ago, he found out he was working at the same place as a friend he knew growing up, Barry. I'd like to note that I was bullied a lot growing up, so most compliments people sent my way, I took as jokes. That said, when I first met Barry when I was 20 years old, he would compliment me and tell me how pretty I was, and I always thanked him for the kind words. As time went on, the compliments got more intense. He would say he'd love to be with a woman my size. I always laughed it off and never said anything. This went on at company picnics and holiday parties I went to with my dad for about 4 years. Then I got a job with the same company, in the same department as Barry. Things were okay for the 3 months he trained me. He still complimented me daily, and I continued to thank him for the compliments. After my training, I went to night shift and only saw him for the 30 minutes of overlap per shift. After 7 months into the job, my boyfriend and I broke up. Barry was sympathetic at first, then became a completely different person. His compliments became more focused on my body and not my face. He would stare at certain body parts while speaking to me and cock his head to the side while standing behind me if I bent down to pick something up. As a woman in a predominantly male work environment, I was used to being stared at, but this was excessive. When I became single, he would also ask me about my sexual history, my preferences in the bedroom, if I'd be with a man of his age, early 50s, or a man of his size, 5 feet and over 300 pounds, and he'd become frustrated when I told him no. Declining everything he asked me never stopped him. He just upped his game. He'd start talking about me and my body to other people at work and asking them questions about me, or trying to get them to ask me the questions he wanted answers to. He did this numerous times to my best friend, who we'll call Jay for privacy reasons. Luckily for me, Jay just so happened to have a massive crush on me. He'd never do anything Barry asked of him, and he always told me everything Barry said or asked. This continued on for around 8 months, and then Barry came to night shift, so my 30 minutes with him became 8 hours. He would start telling me all about his sex history, unprompted. The questions, comments, and staring never stopped. To give you a small example, this man asked me if he won the lottery, would I sleep with him for money? I said no. He offered me $1,000 one time to have sex with him, and I said no. I told him there is no amount of money in the world to make me sleep with him. He got really mad at that. He'd ask for nude pictures, which I said no to. He'd ask Jay to try and sleep with me and take pictures and videos, but Jay refused. This all led to me being constantly stressed out and always looking over my shoulder to see if he was staring at me when I had to bend over to pick something up, or if I had to reach for something. I'm a very petite woman, and all my work clothes at the time were about 2 sizes too large, so you couldn't see my body shape at all. I did that to try and make him stop staring, but it didn't matter. He still did. I stopped talking to him, and I stopped being in his vicinity. But he continued. He directed his comments to other people in the building, mainly Jay. It came to a breaking point one week when my supervisor told me that just my department had to work one weekend. In my shift, there was just me and Barry. I begged my supervisor not to make me come in. I told him I would call out and even take a hit on my record. I explained to him how scared I would be if I was alone with that man. I told him no woman should be alone in a building this size with Barry, period. He listened and canceled the overtime. He made sure I was never alone with Barry without a third person around. I finally broke down and told HR about all of it. Unfortunately, that turned out to be a waste of time, and the harassment continued for 6 more months. But thankfully, I was on medical leave for surgery for 2 of those months. Then in November of last year, the right person on my shift heard me crying and complaining to Jay about everything before going home one night, and they complained to HR on my behalf. They finally opened an investigation. They asked me a ton of questions, and my answers filled up 2 notebook pages front and back of just the comments and questions from him over 3 years. They asked Jay and a few other people who worked around us a ton of questions. And 3 days later, Barry was finally let go for harassment. He threatened me the day they put him on suspension for the investigation, and he was banned from company property unless he wanted to be arrested. I filed a no-contact order against him, and haven't heard from him in over a year. Jay finally told me that Barry had admitted to him at one point shortly before he was let go, that if he ever got to me alone, he was going to rape me and do ungodly things to me, and then just leave my body somewhere. I'm extremely grateful to my supervisor for not letting that happen to me. I had to type this out twice to get my thoughts in order. But the thing that bothers me a lot about all this is that Barry had a daughter a year younger than me, and she had nothing to do with him when I knew him. I can't help but wonder what abuse he possibly put her through growing up. It has been over a year since all this came to an end. I'm no longer scared at work. I'm not on edge or stressed out. I'm not living in baggy-ass clothes anymore. But as long as Barry is living and breathing in my hometown, I will not live there. And he's made a lot of enemies in that small town because of this. That happens in small towns when your parents know everyone, including the sheriff. And if you're wondering about Jay, his massive crush paid off, and we're now dating. I've never felt safer with anyone in my life. So, Barry, the pervert who made my work life hell for 3 years, let's never meet again. And to any other girl or woman who is being harassed at work, don't be afraid to speak up. I promise you, it's worth it to tell someone.